This House is now in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 29th of January 2019 and Tuesday, 12th of February 2019. Honorable for City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move that the minutes of the meetings held on Tuesday, 29th January 2019 and Tuesday, 12th February 2019 be confirmed.
Thanks. Second that, sir.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be confirmed. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. If there are no observations or corrections, then let the aforementioned minutes stand confirmed.
Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, questions, notices of questions, report from select committees, first reading of bills, statements by ministers.
The honourable member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, first let me apologize for the absence of the Honourable Prime Minister. She very much wished that she could have been here for what represents a total transformation in the way in which we conduct the matter of government finances. I expect that we will have her with us later in the week. Mr. Speaker, by way of ministerial statement, I wish formally to commend all members of this Honourable Chamber for helping us to move in this new direction. I believe it
Honourable member, could you speak a little louder?
I believe it will be fair to say that the aura in this chamber is very different to how it is in the normal circumstances. And I do think that its new configuration does lend to perhaps a more, an even more parliamentary look. With this novel approach, Mr. Speaker, to the way in which we conduct government business, there has been some trepidation on the part of some, suspicion on the part of others, and there have been some doubting Thomases who believe that this exercise is sure to fail. But perhaps the mark of the commitment to transparency is that as a government, Mr. Speaker, we are prepared to go in a direction that will serve to bind us, and bind us in a very public and open way as to how we do the people's business. It would have been convenient for us as a new administration to continue in exactly the same vein as which this Parliament has dealt with the estimates for generation after generation. But our commitment to transparency is one, sir, that will undergird everything about how we deal with government finances. This is a new exercise as well for the senior public servants. We thank them for their support not only in preparing the estimates, but also because what is here as the estimates, Mr. Speaker, they have a vested interest in it, not just by virtue of being Barbadians, but also by virtue of straining themselves and exercising every bit of their effort in helping us to reach this place. This, I believe, will go down in history, and it will certainly mark a total transformation. And I hope that the entire Barbadian public, whether they are watchers, passive listeners, or whether they are individuals who have a direct interest in the individual heads as they debated, I believe, sir, that they will all serve to benefit and will come to welcome this tremendous change.
Personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, or replies to questions, notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 28, 13, 42, 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are so suspended. Government business is now the order of the day.
Order number 7, sir. Order number 7 on the supplementary order paper, named the Honorable Attorney General, to move the passing of a resolution to amend Standing Order 6711 of the Standing Orders of the Honorable House of Assembly.
Honorable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, this resolution seeks to amend Standing Order 67, Clause 11. As it currently stands, sir, during the proceedings of the Standing Finance Committee, the minister moving the head would be entitled to speak for 30 minutes, and the minister and the leader of the opposition or member speaking on behalf of the opposition would be entitled to speak for 15 minutes. It is proposed, Mr. Speaker, to reduce these times so that the minister moving the head would speak for 10 minutes only, and that the leader of the opposition or member speaking on behalf of the opposition would be afforded equal time. I remind members of this honorable chamber that we are now in committee, and that when this particular when we move to Standing Finance Committee, we will be in committee, and therefore committee, sir, is more in the line of an inquisitorial process where questions are asked and answers and opinions given, and therefore the purpose of a committee does not lend itself to what we would call speechifying on the parts of members of this chamber on either side of the House. The time for that will still come, because towards the end of the entire estimates process, we will have our second reading speeches where the leader of the opposition will have unlimited time and other members of the chamber will have their half-an-hour allotment. But we want to keep the Standing Finance Committee process as close to a committee process in the normal sense of the word. And therefore, I move formally that Section 67, Clause 11A, that 30 be deleted and 10 replace the deleted number. And in 6711B, that the number 15 be deleted and 10 replace it.
Honorable Member Sir Michael West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no objection to the changes being proposed, albeit they're coming at the very last minute of notice. But in the spirit of things, I will support this fully. I'm sure the changes are not necessitated on a view that the honourable member for the government who speaks first this morning is not deserving of half of an hour. I'm sure it's not that. I'm sure it's more a case. I'm sure it's more a case of Parliament not wanting that the many voices on the opposition side abuse the time, and so I have no problem with the change.
Question is that the amendment to the resolution so stand agreed to. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. The aforementioned resolution is so agreed to and passed.
Order number 6, sir. The appropriation bill and estimates.
Honorable Member City of Bridgetown and leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that Your Honour do now leave the chair and the House resolves itself into Standing Finance Committee
question is that the Speaker do leave the chair and the House resolve itself into a standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
They could reach the floor of this. Standing Finance Committee. Honourable members, in accordance with Standing Order 65, the Estimates and Appropriation Bill, I will now invite the appropriate minister. We are debating the Head 27 at present, which is Tourism and International Transport. Right. Guidelines for this committee. This head will be debated and the other heads will be examined for a maximum of 6 hours. The minister moving the head will have 10 minutes to move his opening presentation. The leader of the opposition will have 10 minutes to respond. Thereafter, each member shall have 3 minutes at each intervention. The minister, permanent secretary, technical officer to whom a question is asked shall have no more than 5 minutes to respond, and the response must be relevant to the question. Your turn.
Head 27. Head 27, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, in the amount of $15,143,197.
Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I take the opportunity at the outset to congratulate you on the historic and unprecedented role which you are now playing and which you will continue to play as being the very first chairman of committees to preside over these reconfigured, this reconfigured form of the discussion of Barbados's estimates of revenue and expenditure. That sense of history, ma'am, also guides me to reflect a little bit on the perspective of the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, because it is also historic that for the very first time, this ministry, indeed, ma'am, from as far back as the memory of man doth run, from the time we created the tourist board in Barbados, this ministry has always, or this sector rather, has always been financed in terms of the marketing requirements by being part of the government's books. From the start of the next financial year, the reality is that this sector will be substantially removed from government's books and therefore must become less reliant and dependent on government finances and consequentially more entrepreneurial in nature. As an inkling into the circumstances confronting the ministry, the last financial year, ma'am, would have seen a budget of $157 million. And that is now substantially reduced to $23 million. And that is a $134 million adjustment, part of which obviously, ma'am, comes about as a result of the fact that there has been a change in the structure of the ministry, and the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy now will take responsibility for the maritime component of what used to be the Ministry of International Transport a year ago. But the fact is, ma'am, that the figure of $96 million would traditionally have been placed at the disposal of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated and the Barbados Tourism Product Authority. You will recall, honorable members will recall, that it was on the 11th of June of 2018 that the Honorable Prime Minister in her first budget announced the requirement for us to have a public-private partnership with responsibility for marketing of the destination shifting to the private sector as the lead agency. I should say, by way of a brief update, ma'am, that we are considerably advanced in the process of that formation of the public-private partnership. Discussions with the workers' representatives not only have begun, but are in a very advanced stage. The organizational chart of the new entity has been discussed and substantially agreed. There are still a couple of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, but I believe confidently that by the end of this financial year, all will be in order. I should take the opportunity as well, ma'am, to speak briefly to the question of the sectoral performance. You will recall, ma'am, that in 2018, the tourism sector was confronted by two types of challenges. The first, in the first 2 or 3 months of the year, would have been reputational in nature because of the crisis on the South Coast with respect to sewage on the streets, etc. And then the second one would have been structural in nature. And I say structural, ma'am, because the business of tourism really is about selling services across borders. People leave their home in order to cross the border and purchase a service provided in Barbados. We, because of the precarious financial circumstances in Barbados, and your parliament will recall that it was in the first quarter of last year that the governor of the central bank, as he then was, indicated that there was a contraction in the Barbados economy of 1%. And ma'am, may I say that that too was unprecedented, because it is in the first quarter of the year that we should be showing considerable growth. We should not be underperforming at the peak of the tourism season. So that because of the precarious circumstances we were confronted with, there was a need to impose on the tourism sector, largely because no other sector in Barbados could carry additional load, an airline, travel, tourism and development tax, a room rate levy, and a direct tourism levy. Those obviously made life a little bit more difficult for the industry. That notwithstanding, ma'am, I am pleased to be in a position to say to you and to your House that by the end of 2018, we were in a position where for the very first time ever, visitor arrivals from the United States of America had passed the 200,000 mark and had reached 204,830 arrivals, which represented an 8.4% positive change or growth over the previous year. We had from the United Kingdom, ma'am, 225,519 arrivals, representing a growth of 1.4% over the previous year, which is the second highest level of arrivals out of the United Kingdom on record. And in terms of Canada, a change positively of 1.8%, representing 86,723 arrivals, which would have been the highest ever recorded arrivals in the last 10 years, and the third highest ever on record. So that in a real sense, ma'am, notwithstanding the fact that we began 2018 with those major source markets indicating to the world that they were issuing public health advisories about travel to Barbados, the end-of-year performance was, in the case of the United States, record-breaking. In the case of Great Britain and Canada markets, virtually record-equaling. Now, ma'am, the fact of the matter is that I genuinely believe that from a position of comparative strength, we have to say certain things. Because if we say them against the background of underperformance, and clearly the sector did not underperform, if we say it against the background of underperformance, people will say you're being unduly defensive. But there are some truths to be told. I do not believe, ma'am, that the House or the country can indulge itself in a sense of triumphalism about those very impressive figures. It represents a 3% growth in tourism arrivals, but the truth is that arrival statistics, though useful, are not the best possible indice upon which to rely. I want to draw to the House's attention, ma'am, that revenue from tourism was at $2.3 billion in 2007. But in 2017, 10 years later, revenue from tourism was at $2.1 billion, which really is a decline in revenue when all things are factored into the equation. So that I think, ma'am, that what we have to have a discussion about, and what I hope that we can have a discussion on at this point, is a discussion on the question of spend as opposed to arrivals. Arrivals reflect the quantity of tourists. Spend speaks, ma'am, to the quality of their experience, the quality of Barbados's product, the quality of what we are doing to refresh and reimagine and recreate a visitor experience. In similar vein, ma'am, I should say a word or two about the cruise tourism. We would have experienced a decline of 1,000 arrivals from 827,000 to 826 during last year, which is not substantial. Essentially, statistically, it is a flat performance. But again, the issue must be one of the quality of the visitor experience, because if there is a wow factor about Barbados, if there is something that you are burning inside to achieve and to experience and participate in, I'm obliged, ma'am. If there's something that you are burning inside to be able to participate in terms of getting off of a cruise ship and immersing yourself in an authentic, rare Barbados experience, then, ma'am, you will do so. You will spend more hours off the ship. You will participate more widely and spend more. And it is via that method, ma'am, that we get to differentiate Barbados from the rest of the Caribbean. We get, ma'am, to remove the doubts about our country's capacity to have tourism, not in a seasonal way, but a year-round way, because we have a variety of experiences to sell year-round. And finally, ma'am, but most importantly, every single Barbadian would have an economic opportunity to generate employment and contribute to economic growth by being part and parcel of a nationwide offering of tourism product across the country. And it is along those lines, ma'am, that I would want to believe that we can have a very useful type of exchange during the course of the next few hours. I am obliged to you.
Thank you. I now invite the Honorable Leader of the Opposition to speak for 10 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm told I must sit in your presence today. My preference would be, of course, that I stand, but I understand the new arrangements. Let me join with the Honourable Member for St. James Central, the Honourable Minister, in complimenting you and being the first to sit and chair this new committee, Standing Committee on Finance. I think in the new business environment here in our chamber today is an elevation, more than simply in the symbol that is suggested by the raised platform on which you're now positioned. I want to compliment the Minister, my honorable friend, as well, for his for the energetic enthusiasm with which his recent words have been charged. He has been saying some wonderful things, and he has been exciting the expectations of Barbados that we will see a new day dawning in tourism to the benefit of our economy and our society as a whole. He's given us somewhat of the context in which he comes to the task. Obviously, he's very well attended and supported by the help we see gathered around him. I'm sure we'll be well advised, and I'm sure that much of the energy and enthusiasm attaching to his words thus far has been derived from the fact that those who advise him are speaking very optimistically about the fortunes of Barbados with respect to the performance of our tourism sector. I would like also to speak a bit about the context. Now, in public in recent time, the Honourable Minister has had a disagreement with the distinguished governor of our central bank, who's suggesting to us that tourism has underperformed, especially in the last quarter of the year of 2018, suggesting that cruise visitors fell by about 10%. And this at a time when we were supposedly benefiting from a shifting in the itineraries in vessels calling on regional ports, because some of our neighbors near and farther afield had suffered the misfortune of the negative impact of natural disaster. Therefore, at the time when we were supposedly benefiting from that and having ships diverted to our ports, we are recording, if the governor of the central bank is to be believed, a drop in our cruise visitors' performance, and a significant drop. Governor is also telling us the context in which we now operate is one in which we have seen tourism output also declined by 1.6%. We have seen, according to him, the average length of stay of our long-stay visitors also declining during that period. And by the minister's own admission, and according to the central bank governor, we've also seen a decline in tourist spend in Barbados, though the numbers with reference to long-stay visitors may have increased, as I understand it. Certainly the spend, which is perhaps the more important thing, has been done. So that is a part of the context in which the minister has in recent months come to this worthy and noble task of leading in this very important sector. A second thing to which I would want to point that speaks as well, Madam Chair, to context is the social milieu in which we find ourselves now. Safety and security are important attributes attaching to Barbados as a tourism destination. And we have been faced in recent months with the growing specter of violent crime. I have said in this Parliament, I think it was at the time of the response to the mini-budget of June of last year, that the best efforts of this government can be frustrated. The best efforts to get this economy back on track and to see growth come to Barbados can be frustrated if we do not get a handle on the business of crime, and especially violent crime in Barbados. Since having said those words, situation seemingly has become worse. Crime is very much more prominently in our face, and crime of the violent sort. That concerns me, our reputation for safety and security as a tourist destination. Then, also along with that, Madam Chair, is the matter of the quality of our infrastructure, the quality and reliability of our infrastructure. We have obvious problems with our road network. It is not an easy thing now, a comfortable thing, to drive across the roads of Barbados. It has not been for a long time, and it has gotten worse in some respects. I'm not laying that at the doorstep of this government, except to say even roads which have been recently paved in Barbados are giving us cause for concern. There is one in a constituency that neighbors mine, and of that specific location perhaps I will not speak in detail, but as a newly laid and surface road, and yet as I understand it, you drive across that, you don't have a smooth ride. In fact, the surface is moving beneath the wheels of your vehicle. I'm saying that in the larger scheme of things, that our infrastructure has become very unreliable and of very, very much deteriorated quality, and that has to be a concern if we're inviting visitors to come to our shore, because these are the things that make Barbados what it is. Sanitation services, of course, the many unsightly situations of garbage pileups all over Barbados is not good testimony that we're managing things properly. Now, I am not laying a charge against this government that they have caused this to be the case, but they are no charge with management of the situation and a responsibility to address these matters. And if they remain long or for much longer unaddressed, then again the reputation of Barbados is tarnished. The whole issue of risk to health of residents and visitors becomes part of the equation. Ma'am, I have to ask, and I put this to the consideration of the minister and his team, as to whether or not we are not long past that day when we should have been pursuing the tourism model that we have been pursuing for years. A model of which the basic planks are simply hotel construction, and hotel construction largely by those who come with foreign investment to our shores. The subsidization of airlift into Barbados so that we have passengers coming to hopefully spend money. We're paying airlines to help bring them here. That's part of the model. The investment concessions that we have been granting investors in the tourism sector who build hotels, and of recent months and years, the sandals experience has been one which has been much talked about by this administration when in opposition for the inordinately high and extraordinarily high levels of concessions which were granted to that particular, a high import food content. It speaks to our import bill, and yet we struggle with our agriculture, we struggle with our small business people who want to sell products and services to the hotel sector. Marketing support, Madam Chair, I wonder if we, and I heard the words of the Minister quite clearly, that perhaps we will be moving to a point where we wean the sector off the level of support that it can expect from the government. Unsatisfactory tax and duty arrangement, low inflows of foreign exchange, because a lot of what is associated with the tourism investment in—
2 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of what is associated with tourism investment in Barbados in terms of potential foreign exchange stays offshore and never gets here. But all of that is part and parcel of the model that we have been pursuing. And I just wonder if the time has not come that we should take a serious look at that model and see how we can adjust matters to our greater benefit. One final point in the closing minute, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to seeing what in these estimates today will suggest to me that there's serious consideration about making sure that the benefits of our tourism efforts are brought to bear at the community level. You take, for instance, what happens at Oistins, especially on weekends. A large influx of tourists go there. But beyond Oistin, where is tourism actually effectively touching the community level of life in Barbados and citizens down at that level benefiting? I suggest for the consideration of the Minister and his team, the area of St. Michael West Off-Spring Garden is one that is worthy of note. You take into consideration the monies expended on Rihanna Drive. We have the Kensington Oval. We have the historic St. Anna's Church. We even have the Westbury Cemetery, where there may be, for those who are interested in those aspects of history, an appeal to go there. All I'm saying, there's the Indian River Monument as well. All I'm saying, Madam Chair, is that I look forward to seeing in these estimates where the monies will touch tourism at the level of the community. I thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. All honorable members are now invited to make their interventions. Please be reminded, or please note, if you want to speak, the name cards in front of you, kindly raise them and I will call on you. You're also reminded that you have 3 minutes to ask your questions and then give way to another speaker. Honorable member for Christchurch South.
Obliged to you, ma'am. Good morning, Minister and your team. Thank you. Minister, I'm going to ask 3 questions, and I will rely on either your mental power of recall or a scripted note. The first one is in relation to, and you do know that I represent Christchurch South, and you would expect that my intervention, thank you, and you will expect that my questions and my intervention will relate almost exclusively to Christchurch South and the interests of Christchurch South. And my constituents, I hope, will not be disappointed. As you know, Minister, there are the main domains of tourism activity in Christchurch South, apart, of course, from the hotel conurbation, would be Oistins, to which the Leader of the Opposition just referred. And then there's St. Lawrence Gap. And as part of St. Lawrence Gap, I would want to draw your specific attention to the Dover facility. Sometimes I refer to that as a mini Oistins in terms of its product. And the third area would be the Graham Hall swamp. And I invite you, Minister, to consider that as an ecotourism project. And so the three that to which I wish to draw your attention would be Oistins as a very important domain of tourism activity, St. Lawrence Gap / Dover, and Graham Hall as an ecotourism project. My question to you, Minister, I wish you to speak to the significance of these three domains that I've identified, and perhaps more importantly, to speak to this House and to this country as to the level of priority that your ministry is dedicating to these areas in Christchurch South. I've asked you to, I've told you that I'm going to rely on your mental power of recall. If you wish to make a scripted note, I'm going to move to question 2. And I did hear you speak of BTMI, the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., and I'm not going to repeat what you've told this House and this country, that you propose, or it is proposed by the government, that it should become a public-private sector enterprise. My question to you, Minister, would be to tell this House and this country what are the advantages of that arrangement. And the second part of the question, is there any precedent for this? And I don't wish you, whether it is or not.
Please wrap up your question.
Yes, thank you very much. 1 minute?
No minutes. Wrap it up.
Do what? No.
Without wanting...
What is the precedent? Yes, I'll be quick. What are the advantages of the proposed BTMI arrangement, and what is the precedent, if there is? And thirdly, in the few seconds left with me, I am aware that there are flights over Barbados which do not land in Barbados. And I am aware that the authority here in Barbados has the legal power or the legal authority to collect monies from these overflights.
Honourable member, question mark?
Yes, I want you to tell this House and this country whether this government or any previous government has been collecting any income from these overflights, and if it is proposed to do so in future as a revenue collecting exercise. I'm obliged to you.
I thank you, honourable member, and your questions have been fulsome. Let me try to deal with them systematically. I think you began with Oistins, and understandably so. It is, quite frankly, the premier, I think, nighttime tourism attraction to be offered on the South Coast, and quite possibly to be offered in Barbados. Certainly it is, from what I gather from all people involved in land-based stayover tourism, the hoteliers, etc., one of the most sought-after experiences in the Barbados, the menu of Barbadian tourism products. To be very frank with you, and around 2014 around the year 2014, the last administration would have entered into discussions with the Inter-American Development Bank because the bank was prepared for the very first time to put tourism as part of that category of areas to which the bank would offer assistance so as to help us remove some of our inherent economic vulnerabilities. Discussions would have turned on the potential of having $20 million placed at the disposal, United States dollars, placed at the disposal of the government of Barbados for the purposes of assisting us with the development of our tourism product. And we should basically, therefore, only have had to have identified where our priorities were and execute the project.
we came to government, as you know, honorable member, in 2018 in the month of May, and there had been dialogue, but there had been no movement. I am pleased to be able to say that since that time there has been some considerable movement. We are at a stage where I can say to you that the creation of an experiential tourism product at Oistins, which includes the Oistins fish fry area, is very much on the cards. I know, honorable member, that there was a meeting that I attended in Oistins with representatives of the Ministry of Tourism and indeed representatives of the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, where I met with some folks who are selling a variety of, some selling food, some doing drinks, etc., in the Bay Garden area, the Berenda Cox Fish Market area as well. And we took a little tour after that meeting so that I am familiar firsthand, above and beyond, passing through there from time to time. I am familiar by daylight of the challenges that you experience in the adjacent boatyard and in the fish market. And those challenges, I want to say to this House, are real. There's a need for some of the most basic things to be done in Oistins if we're not going to be shooting ourselves in the foot. It is an excellent tourism product sprung from the belly of the community, but it must be supported by infrastructure. It needs to have modernized facilities. It must have, for example, bathroom facilities that are appropriate. It must have satisfactory drainage facilities. There must be more comfortable seating arrangements provided. That is where the component of the 20 million IDB funding would be going to for Oistins. What I believe I can say, though, and should say, is that I think I am correct when I suggest to you, honorable member, that I am really waiting on your folks to get back to me. Because after talking with them, I was assured that a community group was going to be put together there where they would conceptualize that which they want to do. My permanent secretary and I do not want to be force-feeding them. We want them to tell us this is where we would like to go, and we simply hold their hand in partnership to take them there.
Honorable member, 1 minute to wrap up.
So I believe that I can say is the situation with Oistins. Ma'am, I couldn't possibly answer all. Could I do them systematically then? Time frame,
5 minutes, you have 30 seconds.
You asked a lot of questions though, ma'am. The BT, well, I want to go to St. Lawrence Gap. We can come back to the BTM, I am sure. St. Lawrence Gap is another critical area where we have a lot of potential. The manifesto of the Barbados Labour Party makes it abundantly clear that it should be earmarked as an entertainment experience and prioritized as such alongside of Whole Town. Now, one of the things that we must confront, honorable member, is the fact that in St. Lawrence Gap, you have multiple usage. You have people who are there as residents. You have people who are there in a commercial capacity having nothing to do with entertainment per se. And then you have people who are there with an entertainment interest. And we have to find a way of marrying those relationships. I think, quite frankly, that the problem has been historically that we have not managed the process of that marriage. And of course, we must deal with the bugbear that has been swept under the rug for a long time, which is noise. And I think that the country must have a serious conversation on how we deal with the issue of noise pollution so that it can be a happy relationship for those people who live down there, while at the same time not killing an entertainment district by making it impossible for them to do that which entertainment districts must be able to do. In addition to that, I think that there is a need, and there is certainly a plan taking place, unfolding right now, for the pedestrianization of St. Lawrence Gap, and as well as a use of a tram experience through the gap. But those are things I'm quite happy to expand on once we have more time.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member for St. James South.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Habit. And good morning to everyone. I just wanted to start by stating to the chamber, to the country, on the point raised by the member of the opposition concerning the fact that roads and sanitation and crime are necessary to be dealt with.
Honorable member, please place your microphone. Thank you.
Sorry. If
Go ahead. Honorable Member Christchurch.
To subsume my questions into a single presentation. And if this exercise is to be meaningful, I was expecting that the Honorable Minister would be given enough time, not that I'm challenging the rules, but that he would be given enough time to answer each question according to the time allotted in respect of each question.
Honorable Member, we just discussed this with the parliamentary clerk, and it's a little unclear here, but we've decided that you ask your 3 questions in the 3-minute period,
Yes.
and then the honorable member would have 5 minutes to answer each. Or you could ask your question, come back with a supplementary related question on 2 more occasions, and he answers each.
At the end of my honorable colleague?
Either you are allowed, let me read it, a member is allowed 3 supplementary questions at 1 intervention after giving way to another member.
Yeah.
So we just spoke about it, and we've decided that you can ask your 3 supplementary questions, 1 at a time, over the 3-minute period. So you can ask 1, the Honorable Minister can answer. You can ask again a related question, and he can answer, and so on.
I understand that, but when do I do that, Your Honor? Okay, I'll give way, and you can be assured,
Do you want
Madam
to
Chair.
finish yours? Because the truth is it was a little ambiguous.
Yes, if my honorable colleague would
Okay,
defer. Thank you very much.
go ahead.
And this intervention does express some sympathy with the minister, because we have brought him here to speak as to the work of his ministry, and he is being constrained by our interpretation of rules, and I'm not quarreling with the chair. But I've asked him about Oistins, I've asked him about St. Lawrence Gap, I've asked him about Dover, and there is a rule apparently that is getting in the way of him giving this country a full answer as to the work of his ministry. And I'm going to ask the Honorable Chair to liberally interpret these rules so that the Honorable Minister can report to this country. And I'm not quarreling with the Chair. I'm just asking that this exercise should allow the Minister to speak his mind, and to speak his mind fully, and not to allow rules to constrain us to some academic exercise.
And while I agree with you, Honorable Member, we may be here all day knowing the minister as he is. So there has to be some limit to the answer to the question. But recommendation taken and acknowledged.
Well, I am representing Christchurch South, and Christchurch South.
Honorable Member, you have a question that he may answer, because the clock is also ticking.
I give way to the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, who has an intervention.
Yeah, Madam Chair, with your leave, I have an issue.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Because my understanding of the rules was the honorable member for Christchurch South, if he had 3 questions, could have asked 1 question, come back anytime during the 6-hour period, and ask the 2 other questions. I have about 10 or 11 questions here for the honorable member for Christchurch.
You are right, Honorable Member, but how it stands
and
now,
I need to get to that.
you are allowed to ask 1 question over a 3-minute period and 2 other related questions.
In that 3 minutes.
Yes, in that 3 minutes. If you are finished with your question, 1 question in the 3 minutes, then you move on to another member. At any time in the 6-hour period, a member can repeat the question over another 3-minute period.
Got you.
Can be assured that I'll be back.
Okay. Can I give it to the honorable member for St. James South, as you have started?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to start by making a quick statement about tourism, crime, roads, and sanitation, as was raised by the opposition, to reassure him that the very quick, focused work that is being done by the Barbados Labour Party in relation to securing resources.
I am not so sure that the Honourable Member St. James South should be replying to my concerns. I was suggesting quite clearly that part of our reputation as a tourism destination is safety, security, and good sanitation quality. That's all I put out there. I do not know that the Honourable Member St. James South should be using this time to reply to me. I thought the questions were to be addressed to the Minister's team.
Honourable Member for St. James, please carry on.
Yes, and just to reassure him that the tremendous work being done by the various ministers is to ensure we put things in place so that we are able to make sure that Barbadians are comfortable in their own country and that we can attract the type of visitors which we want to have so that we can take care of our bills. And in relation to tourism, I have a big concern in St. James South, and it is about the fact that taxi owners are having a difficulty at the port and perhaps in other places in being able to participate in the tourism economic pie. I was very concerned to hear from those who have participated in the season that in the midst of a bumper tourist season, that they were having difficulty getting jobs. And these are small business people who've taken the time to invest their money in a taxi to be an entrepreneur. And I want to know what the Ministry of Tourism is doing to ensure better, broader participation of all players in our tourism product.
Honourable Member.
I too have a constituency. I too have a constituency in which I have a similar problem. So I have a first-hand and familiar understanding of the concern raised by the honourable member. Madam Chair, let me be very frank with you. Philosophically, I'll start on the philosophical position. I think it is important for us to understand that the solution first and foremost begins with every effort being made to increase the number of arrivals by way of cruise passengers that this country has. 80% of 10 is 8 passengers. If you are in the ground transportation business and you have 80% of that business, but you're getting 10 passengers coming through the port, you're getting 8 passengers. If you can increase that to get 80% of 100, you get 80 passengers. And if you get 80% of 1,000, obviously you're getting 800 passengers. The math is very elementary. The second thing that we have to be able to confront, ma'am, is the question, the reality of the number of taxi operators at the port. And I think the country must speak to this as a moral imperative. There are 255 taxi operators at the Bridgetown port. They are getting 5% of the business in terms of the passengers coming off of ships and transporting them around Barbados. Now, from where I sit, ma'am, philosophically, that does not sit well with me. And I think we do the country and the image of that thing we call democracy, and economic democracy is at the forefront of my thoughts in this matter. We do it a tremendous injustice if we allow that to continue to be the state of affairs. So first of all, I am not interested in taking away anybody's business. I am interested in broadening the pie. And secondly, I am interested in having a greater access to opportunity for the persons who are driving taxis for a living. Now, I've met with the taxi operators, several around Barbados, in the port, at the airport, and etc. And there are a number of things that we have to do. Specifically with respect to the port, ma'am, I think there's another statistic I must share with this country, and that is that the Business Research Economic Advisors of the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association produced a report called the BREA report, Business Research Economic Advisory Report. The average spend for transit passengers in Barbados in 2014 was $75.85. In 2018, it dropped to $64.05. as average spend. So that we are confronting ourselves with a situation where transit passengers are in fact spending less, and that is now the statistical data that is making it patently clear to us that we are failing ourselves. We can correct that problem, I believe, by more deeply involving those persons who are taxi operators at the Bridgetown Port. Now, the solution has to be about inclusivity. I have to thank the honourable member who is Minister for the Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy for allowing me to seamlessly interface with the authorities at the Bridgetown Port, which is strictly speaking not under my jurisdiction anymore. But the reality is, ma'am, that there's now a project proposal to be unrolled or rolled out at winter of this year, during this winter season, 2019-20, and that will be to see the Bridgetown Port cooperative taxis branded. First step. It will allow for them to offer intimate and smaller personalized tours. There are 4 areas that they're looking at, ma'am. They're looking at eco-adventure, similar to what the Honourable Member for Christchurch South spoke about with Graham Hall. There are people who want to have that kind of eco-related adventure. They want, ma'am, to experience historic Bridgetown. I'm happy to talk about historic Bridgetown later. They also are interested, obviously, in beach activities and heritage tourism. All of these are areas where we are in a position to flesh out greater product development and have greater activity. But we have to have a transportation sector that is branded so that it can function as a cooperative distinctly, that is bespoke in nature so that you can have custom design tours. And then, ma'am, for the first time ever, we have to connect these people to the cruise ships. And that means, ma'am, we have to get them to the trade shows. That process is now underway. We have, ma'am, to be able to help them cover themselves by way of insurances. Now, the insurance requirements for the cruise line industry are phenomenal. And I believe it is entirely correct to say that the board of the Bridgetown Port has now agreed that they will assist the taxi co-op when once up and functioning with its first year of financial commitments for insurances, so that you don't have to have individual taxi men looking to find 60 or 70,000 United States dollars in order to get the insurance necessary, that we can get them off the ground and help that cooperative to unfold. And then secondly, ma'am, or finally, ma'am, there has to be the sale and promotion of that which they offer. And we can do this via use of modern technology, for example, apps on cell phones, so that as soon as you come into Barbados, you can get a range, a menu of the things that Barbados is offering. You're not reliant on any middleman. You can find your way to the attraction that suits you, fits your personal interest in a better way, and you have a 5 or 6 seater able to offer you a different type of experience that does not right now, quite frankly, have access to the market in the same way.
Okay. Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, I would like to congratulate the Minister for his stewardship of the ministry so far. I'm very impressed with the work that he has done, and we continue to look forward to great things from the Minister of Tourism. I also want to congratulate him on, I believe he was the minister who brought Copa Airlines to Barbados. And the reason I want to talk about Copa is, first, I had the opportunity to travel on Copa to Panama, and I was very impressed with the service done. And the question that I want to ask the minister, or maybe perhaps to the permanent secretary, is what other plans does the ministry have for non-traditional airlift coming out of non-traditional destinations, so that we'll continue to open our source markets up for the Barbadian tourist market? Thank you.
Somebody to answer, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Could you please introduce yourself and your post? Thank you.
I am Donna Cadogan, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. In relation to non-traditional sources of airlift, the ministry's mandate has now been extended to look at places such as China, Asia, and the African continent. Traditionally, we have looked only at the markets, the USA, Canada, the UK, but we are now moving to diversify our source markets. Given the geographical location of Barbados, we see it particularly alluring for us to move in the direction of getting people to come from these other destinations, using Barbados as a hub. Because Barbados, with its location, we are close to South America, we are close to Central America, we are close to North America. And we really want to move to have the Grantley Adams International Airport look at additional revenue streams, and these streams would include offering services to airlines coming from all destinations. This is part of the strategic plan of the Ministry of Tourism. I'm going to allow the CEO, BTMI, to give you specifics on how we intend to go about marketing in this direction.
Split into three minutes? Oh, he has another three? Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Morning.
My name is Billy Griffith, and I'm the CEO of BTMI, Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc. The Permanent Secretary was addressing the issue of airlift and how we go about identifying suitable markets to which to attract. So as you know, the traditional markets so far, the core markets are US, UK, Canada, Europe, and we even add Caribbean market and Latin America as well. There was discussion on COPA, and we think that that has gone extremely well so far. The Permanent Secretary just mentioned how do we go to the non-traditional markets, and I think it's a question of how much funding we have, how much awareness there are in the specific market areas, and our objective then is to go towards the areas of highest potential. She mentioned China and India. Only last year, I think 18 months ago, China achieved a visa waiver. And I think it's our objective as well that if we are going after these markets, that there needs to be the opportunity not to have to apply for a visa to get to these markets. So I think that is really our approach as we go forward in terms of the marketing of it. We certainly assess each market. We certainly measure the level of awareness. And obviously, our approach in terms of how we market depends as well in terms of the level of awareness and how we target the potential customer that we want, because the target market has to be the person who has the propensity to be able to afford a Barbados vacation and to be able to afford an overall vacation on the island. So that's our basic approach.
Great. Next. Honourable members for St. Peter. Coming to you next.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want, before I ask the question, to add my voice to the vision, I think, of government in having estimates debated in this form. And I want to thank those public servants who are supporting the Honourable Minister of Tourism and International Transport. I know there was, or we heard, that there was some uncertainty, but from their faces, they seem quite comfortable. And I think the proceedings so far would suggest that they have not been placed in a proverbial ant's nest, that it's just a matter of asking questions and getting answers to questions. So I would want to congratulate the personnel, the technocrats from the ministry and related organizations for attending in such fulsome numbers and seeming so comfortable. This is part of government's way of opening business to the public. And the business that we're discussing as it relates to the Ministry of International Tourism and International Transport, we're talking about the estimates, and I want to ask a particular question. This is under the subhead, Research and Product Development Unit. I know that there is a reduction of about $200,000 approximately between the estimates, the proposed estimates for 2019-20 and the previous year, 1.2 million to 1 million approximately. And I'm asking a question that the people who sent me here want me to ask. Because when we talk about product development, those who sent me here are concerned about Spikestone. And given that there is a reduction in the amount to be allocated to product development, the question I have is, where does Spikestone stand in the priorities of this ministry, given the government's commitment to creating in Spikestone a center for culture, arts, and cuisine, not just for visitors, for locals as well, but for visitors. And I just want to find out from the minister and his supporting team, what is the intention, given the reduced budget? What can those who sent me here look forward to as it relates to the development of Spikestone? This includes the pier and all the attendant activities and facilities that would create in Spikestone a product that would be attractive to both locals and visitors.
I remember.
Madam Chair, I want to begin by thanking the honorable member for drawing to our attention at subprogram 740074 what really is a bit of the printer's devil. That should read research and planning unit as opposed to product development unit.
Okay.
Product development is really going to be located within the ministry, within the BTMI, and so therefore I don't want there to be any confusion about commitment to product development, because product development will form part of the new look Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. Specifically with respect to Spikestone, the honourable member's constituency interests are noted, and I share his desire to see some emphasis. The fact of the matter is, ma'am, that if the honourable member casts his mind back only about a week or two, I have spoken extensively about our desire to have Spikestone as being a possible hub for northern landings, especially for that category of cruise ship which are called the luxury category, those super mega yachts, those cruise ships that carry 2,000 or 1,500 people or less. We believe that a revisitation to this, of the Spikestone jetty and other suitable facilities, and obviously this is a matter about which we have to work, upon which we have to work with the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, can yield substantial dividends for the folks in Spikestone. It also serves to augment the tourism product because of the fact that you take away some of the congestion at the Bridgetown port, which is now a serious problem, and you also help to refresh the experience by having people arrive in the north of the island and then connect them very easily to some of the northern attractions. And there are a significant number of northern attractions. In terms of the revitalization of Spikestone, that is just consequentially economic to the process, because if we can channel, and as we now have, quite frankly, it came to my attention only this morning that there is a demand now for greater nighttime tourism experiences by virtue of the fact that our mega yachts and that luxury category are now staying longer hours in port, and some of them are also home porting, and they want things for their passengers to be able to do, so that a culinary experience or a heritage experience in Spikestone makes it even more attractive in terms of the development. It also marries well, Madam Chair, with what is planned in terms of the new hotel investment by Beaches. Now, Beaches is proposing to have 750 rooms available in Barbados. The vertical build-out is anticipated to begin within a few weeks or months. I know that it went out to public tender last week. The beach work has already been done and I think completed on the beaches out there, so that the presence of that much more traffic in the immediate vicinity of Speightstown also lends itself to the interest of the ministry, because of the fact that we are now going to transform Speightstown by giving it far more commercial activity of a touristic nature, and by extension create far more opportunity for the people of the north. And that obviously pleases me, because my constituency also is part of the north. Now, I should say to you as well, Madam Chair, that again, this is part and parcel of where the use of the taxi operators in Barbados becomes very important. We have to build synergies. We have to be able to make sure that there is a way in which the average taxi operator is able to correlate to the hotel experience, the enhanced cruise experience as we plan it out, and then places around the north which are offering products. And that can extend as far as Whole Town, and it can go as far up as the northern tip of St. Lucie. But that, I think, ma'am, is the way in which we have to plan the future.
Honourable Member, Leader, go ahead.
I would want then to ask the representatives from the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. about concrete plans. I've heard the minister speak to hotel development, which is one already on the cards, and I think we know of maybe one or two others that may be in the pipeline. Are there any specific plans within the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. in its product orientation or the product unit that is to be set up or has been set up within the ministry? Any specific plans for the build-out, the development, the encouragement of the heritage and the other aspects of tourism development that we have placed in the manifesto? Is there anything concrete? I know what the aims are in terms of refurbishing the jetty and getting the mega yachts down, but are there any specific plans at this point? You may or may not have, but I'm asking if there are any specific plans at this point for Speightstown.
But again, the honourable member is putting me in a position where I have to remind him that he committed himself to create a committee in Speightstown. I believe there is now a committee functioning in Speightstown looking at the development of Speightstown, and I suspect, from what I gather, that it involves one name that comes to mind is Sir Paul Altman, because when I spoke to him about the one in Whole Town, he indicated to me that he had committed to the honourable member that he was going to work with the one in Speightstown as well. And what essentially we are hoping to be able to do is to receive the proposal from the Speightstown committee. Just as I said with Oystins, I do not feel that I should try to force feed or superimpose on any community that which it wants to do. I think that what we have understood in principle is that we want to have an emphasis made on Speightstown, as the manifesto indicates. But now how that is fleshed out must be a process in which the folks in Speightstown, under the leadership of the honourable member, are able then to make a project proposal or a series of project proposals, and then the ministry is quite happy to partner with you once we have received them, and to place at your disposal some of the technocratic expertise that we have. The BTPA has project development personnel who are sought after around the Caribbean, and I believe that home drum should beat first. I say only by way of by example that one of the ways I think the BTMI can finance itself is by using some of the tremendous skills we have within the BTPA, so that we can help build out and design and refresh projects, and by extension tourism product overseas and obviously here at home.
There are two follow-up.
Two follow-up. You did two, one more.
Right. So I just want to be clear, and I thank the minister for his response. I think those who are listening from my neck of the woods, those who I represent, have a better understanding. And so I just want to be clear for the record here, but also for them, that once we can put together proposals and submit them to the ministry or the appropriate bodies within that fall under the purview of the ministry, that the ministry is willing to lend the technocratic advice and also, as you are able to partner with those of us in Speightstown in the process of building out Speightstown. Is that correct?
That is entirely correct, honorable member.
Okay.
It is an approach that I intend to I've already indicated to Old Town that is how we are going to go. I indicated to the honorable member with responsibility for Oistins that is the route we wish to travel. Mm-hmm. Similarly, I believe we will have to do the same thing in St. Lawrence Gap, and we should. And similarly in Speightstown. With regards specifically to your question of future investment, I want to remind the honourable member that there are 83 acres of land at Harrison Point. It has tremendous potential for further hotel investment, and within the first couple of weeks of April, we are anticipating that with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and Investment, we will be able to host in Barbados a tourism conference, which will bring investors to the country so that they can look at a number of potential opportunities for investment and help us to tailor those investment opportunities to the type of hotel accommodation sector that we want to build out in Barbados, and by extension then lend to economic growth being stimulated in the country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, ma'am. I was beginning to fear that I had to wait till you make the rung of 27 or 26 or before you got back here.
Fear unfunded. Go ahead.
I was beginning to fear that I had to wait till you made the round of 26 until you got back here, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I wish you would protect me from honorable members, Madam Chair. After all, it is only I. Now, Madam Chair, there was an honorable gentleman who sat once in this chamber. He no longer sits here officially. He led a political party in this country fairly effectively. He left one party and joined the government of the time, and has continued to serve the people of Barbados in sterling fashion. He is to be remunerated for his service to this country, and I have absolutely no problem with that. I don't even question the amount. I think he has earned his payday. But I am concerned about professional services, Madam Chair, fees paid to consultants. If you look at the estimates relative to the Ministry of Finance, these estimates show a movement from last year, $206,000 for professional services, fees paid to consultants, to $4 million when this administration came to office and completed that financial year. In the current estimates, it's being proposed that professional fees paid to consultants, be moved to $14 million. And these estimates also suggest that next year, there's a projection to move these professional services fees to $21 million. Now, the Minister of Tourism may not be aware of this, and I'm not expecting necessarily that he would respond to this specifically, but in case he did not hear, or he may have considered that his ears were not functioning properly, I just want to repeat the numbers. The vote for professional services was $206,000 when this administration came to office. To complete the year, it moved to $4 million. That's the actual of 2018. This year is being proposed that it moved to $14 million, and next year to $21 million. Now, with respect to this specific ministry, led by my honorable friend, the professional services vote in program 040 and account 226 under subprogram 7010, I think it is. Anyhow, the amount is $306,000 being proposed for this ministry. The explanatory note suggests to us that this is to pay 2 consultants, an environmental consultant and a social consultant. I am simply asking the minister if he can to expand as to what this represents, an environmental consultant and a social consultant to the tune of $306,000 being proposed for next year. I am not asking him necessarily to respond to the movement from 206,000 to 4 million to 14 million to 21 million, as is recorded in the estimates of the Ministry of Finance.
Get some juice. Thank you, honorable member. The point to which you refer is directly related to the matter I raised when I spoke to the honorable member for Christchurch South about an IDB Barbados or assistance being offered to Barbados through an IDB program, which would be IDB Barbados Country Strategy. The fact of the matter is that while the project is financed by a $20 million United States loan from the IDB, there are requirements under the program that there be consultants who are brought in with a view to making sure that the project is executed in a satisfactory manner. The specifics of that consultancy, I will ask the permanent secretary to assist the House with. But the fact of the matter is that every cent of that money that the honorable member speaks to is made necessary not by us, but made necessary as a result of the arrangements which we are entering into with the IDB in order to get a loan of $20 million. And if we are going to fund $20 million to the tune of $20 million United States dollars, the opportunity for us to develop tourism product in Oistins and in Bridgetown, then, honorable member, I am going to respectfully submit to you that the cost of paying a consultant $300,000 or a few consultants, I think there are 3 consultants that will be brought in, $300,000 is not exorbitant or disproportionate, because we cannot get value for nothing.
The IDB $20 million program is going to have certain prerequisites to the loan. And part of this will be having, as the minister said, we need to have 2 consultants, a social consultant and an environmental consultant. Now, the IDB National Tourism Program is going to be a project which will see the enhancement of certain areas in Bridgetown specifically. That is where the project will be starting. We are going to be starting with the development of a visitor center in the old town hall building. This visitor center will provide services to visitors who come primarily from the port. If you know the area, you would realize that a number of visitors normally walk up to the BTI, where the BTI is located, in the old town hall building. So we selected that as a good site, which they are already familiar with, and which is the natural concourse. So we will be siting the visitor center in there. In that area, we will be having the, the visitor center will be there to give visitors direction in terms of attractions and information, interpretive information on historical Barbados and that sort of thing. Primarily, the IDB program is going to be based on cultural tourism and heritage tourism. And these two consultants that you're asking about, they will be the ones to look at the social assessment of the entire project, as well as the environmental assessment of the project. The project is going to extend also to the Oystins Beer Gardens, where we are going to be doing some enhancing of the conditions up there, which the minister spoke about earlier. It will also go to the museum. It will be extended to the museum, where we will be doing some refurbishment of the car park. The project is quite an extensive project, and we expect that it will revolutionize or greatly improve things in the Bridgetown area.
Follow-up and related to the minister again, of course, and this one I do hope that you would recognize it falls to him, even though the money is located this time in the Ministry of Finance, but it is specified there for tourism development. It is located not in the Ministry of Finance, in the Prime Minister's office this time. It's an amount of $33 million, 3.6 of which I think is going to Tourism Investment, Inc. I don't have a question on that. I do have a question on the $30 million allocated for the Sam Lord's Castle project. I think the Parliament needs to hear the status of things at the Sam Lord's redevelopment project. Is $30 million. There's a question as to what is the current outstanding level of indebtedness of government or government-related entities to the owners for the property up there. So I am asking for an explanation if the minister is in a position so to give on that $30 million allocated for capital works development in relation to the Sam Lord's project. The money is located in the Prime Minister's office.
Madam Chair, that the money is located in the Prime Minister's office should have guided my friend to the fact that it is not within the remit of the Ministry of Tourism, but more so within the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment. Out of an abundance of caution, however, I had asked that the CEO of the BTII, which is no longer part of the Ministry of Tourism, but is now part of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, be present at the meeting of this House, so that in spite of the fact that that head is not being called today, he might be able to shed some light on matters of this nature if they arose. I believe he is present, ma'am, and I would want to invite him to come to the table.
Good morning to all, Madam Chair. My name is Stuart Lane. I'm the CEO of the Barbados Tourism Investment, Inc. Just to follow up on the question that was asked, current status of the project, current projection is that it can be completed by the end. This is end meaning December 2020. Currently, there are two major blocks under construction, which would result by the end of March. This is not the outfitting of the blocks, but the actual physical structures, close to 200 rooms. The project itself is a 450-room hotel built to 5 diamond specifications. It's a Wyndham Grand. In other words, the Wyndham brand would be responsible for managing the property. So that's basically where the hotel status is right now. The funding would have been provided by government in its estimates, because essentially the facility for building it is a $170 million loan from Exim Bank of China. The estimated cost is $200 million, and government is responsible for providing counterpart funding to facilitate the completion of the property. In relation to the issue of land, yes, there is indeed an outstanding amount, as this House is probably well aware. The land was compulsory acquired by the government, and there is still a balance, which I don't have with me since it's calculated daily, but there is some outstanding balance still to be paid on the land.
Leader of the Opposition, do you have a supplementary? Thank you, Mr. Lynn, for your response, but can we limit the questioning for other heads that do not fall under the Ministry of Tourism to the relevant head when we get to it? Do you have a supplementary question?
Madam Chair, we weren't able to ascertain the balanced position, and that concerns me. Even if we are not in a position to say what is the up-to-date balance, certainly there must be a figure when last we checked that we could have been given some information on.
Ma'am, if I may, the honourable member is not a stranger to the place, and the honourable member knows that if this head is a tourism head as opposed to an investment head, and the minister responsible is not at the table. I think, ma'am, that I can assist the honourable member by offering him 2 courses of action to his very legitimate concerns. The first, of course, is that he can utilize the methodology of a parliamentary question to the relevant minister when she is in her chair. And secondly, ma'am, I can assist the member by pointing out to him that it has been indicated by the Honourable Prime Minister that this is a matter that she is concerned about sufficiently to want to have discussions with financiers, and if she is uncomfortable, will take the decision that we advertise for sale. So that it is not something that one is being evasive about. I genuinely want to be able to assist the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, but I think he's asking his questions to the people in the incorrect ministry.
Thank you. Honourable member, you have a supplemental? That was your third, though, if it were a question.
I'm not asking a question, I'm making a comment. This item of expense is located in the Prime Minister's office, but specifically it relates to tourism investment. You want to tell me that the Ministry of Tourism, the Minister of Tourism, has no immediate knowledge of matters relative to this at this level of expense?
Honourable member for Christchurch East. Yeah.
Ma'am, was I just asked a question? I wasn't sure.
I did not hear a question. I'm not sure if you did.
Oh, I thought I heard an observation, but it didn't seem like a question.
An observation.
To me, an observation about a matter that was inherited from the previous government. I don't know.
Can we have the Honourable? Oh, okay. Christchurch East.
Madam Chair, this is a question actually directed to the chairman of BTMI. I would like to know, and a number of people would like to know, sorry, I'm going to let him get into position. The new structure of BTMI as effectively a public-private hybrid, has it yielded the desired or the expected results within the tourism sector? And also, is there a strategic direction in the spending of your marketing budget? Because I would have heard the minister say we're looking at trying to promote year-round tourism for Barbados, and it makes sense. We can't have an economy that is pretty much concentrated on 6 months in a year, especially when we're trying to drive business for the hotel sector, for the restaurants, for all those people who depend on the tourism industry. So I would actually like to know, does the BTMI have a serious strategic direction in the spending of its marketing budget? I know it's probably not as much as it was before, but how are we going to make best use of that to get the business that we want?
Just go on.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Sunil Chatrani, and I'm the chairman of the BTMI and still in existence at this point in time, the BTPA. Let me first start out by saying that the transition is not yet completed. The two entities of the BTMI and BTPA still exist independently. We are in the process of completing the transition and hope to have that finished within the next couple of weeks. However, with regards to making the destination a 12-month destination, the BTMI is focused on that, and part of our mandate are to find events, significant enough events that we can have a 12-month or different events for each month of the year over the 12 months. And we have to find those. We'll continue to work with the various entities in the private sector to do that. The PPP is supposed to be a combination of private and public sectors working together. And as we continue to, we're doing that right now, even from the past. We just need to enhance that. And by enhancing that, I think a good example of it would have been recently with the food and rum events, where it's gone from a week-long event to a month-long by having more restaurants and so involved. We need to find more of those things and to expand that and take that through the year. So yes, the marketing spend of the BTMI will focus more on making this into a true 12-month destination.
I think it's head 74, tourism development. And I have a concern similar to one expressed before, that effectively, once you get past Maxwell in Christchurch, I think the major property there is Sandals. There is really no major...
I remember to remind you, it's head 27 we're discussing right now. You erred in your number.
No problem, Madam Chair, I appreciate it. Whatever the number is, the question is directed to whoever may answer from in the well. There is no major tourism property once you leave Sandals until you hit the Crane. So you pass through pretty much the bulk of the South Coast, missing out a lot of the honorable member for Christchurch South constituency, missing out Christchurch East. And my concern in particular is the property at Silver Sands. That property was a major driver of investment in the Silver Sands area. It provided a source of livelihood for a lot of people in the Silver Sands area. It is a potentially massive property. It has been sitting there doing nothing for a while. And the people of Silver Sands and the surrounding areas can benefit significantly from the economic activity that the reincorporation of that plan into the overall tourism product can generate. So I know it's a privately owned hotel, but does the ministry or the BTMI have any plans? Is there anything on the table that can perhaps give comfort to people that we have not abandoned them and we are not ignoring that section of the coast, but we're actually looking to bring some development back there? Because it's not, we keep talking about Oistins, but I'm thinking about the Silver Sands on a Saturday. I mean, there's so many ideas for that area, but we need some property to be the focus of it. And we have a wonderful property that has, for all intents and purposes, been abandoned to the elements. So I just want to know if there's anything that I can take some comfort from that may help me down the road.
Yeah, the honourable member, ma'am, has hit the nail on the head. The fact of the matter is that that is one of the properties which we would confidently hope we can attract investment in by way of the proposed investment conference, which we would want to have held within the first couple of weeks of the month of April. Ma'am, to cut a long story short, it is not only Silver Sands Hotel. You go further along that south coast. In fact, you go to the very back of the airport next door to Paragon, and you go down the hill from Paragon. You have about a 38-acre expanse taking you right down to the beach, which is also ripe for investment. And the owners and I have discussed that matter as well. The truth is that the Leader of the Opposition was coming very close to making, by way of his question, an observation that needs to be addressed. And that is that there is obviously a marriage of two ministries trying to drive the tourism process. On one hand, we have the investment approach, which I do not superintend on a day-by-day basis. And on the other hand, we have the day-to-day operation and management of the sector. But there is, ma'am, a common understanding of the fact that those two areas, Silver Sands Hotel, which quite frankly, even though it was a fully functioning hotel at one stage, was substantially underutilized in terms of its acreage and actual capacity. So it is a far larger property in terms of its potential use than what currently is represented if you only look at the footprint of the existing or pre-existing hotel. We have, ma'am, to take those two into consideration, as well as about 12 others, beginning at Savannah on the south coast and taking you all the way along Bay Street down to Carlisle Car Park, past Carlisle Car Park, and out in the direction of Travers Way. There are about 12 potential properties which are ripe and ready for investment. And for too long, I think this is really the message, for too long, this country has sat on those investment opportunities without doing enough to energize and to jumpstart redevelopment of that part of the hotel sector. And may I say, ma'am, much to our detriment, room stock in Barbados has actually fallen rather than grown if you look at the hotel accommodation sector. So that while there has been thriving investment across the Eastern Caribbean with whom we compete and the Northern Caribbean with whom we compete, we have not in Barbados had that same level of development of our hotel room accommodation. And it is a matter which concerns me and concerns the Ministry, both of Tourism and Economic Affairs, Finance and Investment. And we are trying, ma'am, to find a way, by way of the investment conference to which I referred, to jumpstarting the redevelopment of some of these entities.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I want to say good morning as well and congratulate the Honourable Minister and his team for being here. What I will make reference to, ma'am, is parochial. Since I admire those who have the beaches that are asking for whatever can happen there, I have a different kind of beauty, panoramic view of all of the beaches in the north. I want, ma'am, to focus my attention on Harrison's Cave. And that project for the redevelopment, I believe 2006, aspects of it were brought to conclusion in 2010, but we are still very saddened in the parish, ma'am, that we still do not have a complete project that embraces the residents and businesses in the community. I know that there has been a plan by the Ministry of Tourism, and we're seeing it in a number of other communities, for community tourism to become an integral part of the package that's being offered. And therefore, the planning for the pedestrianization of the road from Ashford to the cave has served the local residents well, but not a tourist has ever gotten off a bus or a taxi to walk the route to integrate themselves with the residents and to be able to build relationships and interests. And so I want to find out, what are the plans that would have been on the cards, A, in association to the kiosks that were to be an integral part of it, because there's a high level of unemployment in Allen View, and of course Harrison's Cave has been taken over in a sense, where people's properties have been taken and the structure and so has been put in place, but some of the residents, I mean a large percentage of them, have been left on the fringes with no employment, little or no involvement with what happens in that cave over the past 30 or 35 years. So I want to know what is the status of the kiosks that will be put in Allen View or along the streets, wherever plans there were, to facilitate involvement of the residents and integrating the visitors among us as a part of it to help them with generation of employment and funding and so on. And I'll give both of mine one time. So the empowerment of those residents is very, very critical. The second one is to do with the heart. St. Thomas being the heart of Barbados, despite whatever the members for St. George would choose to say. And so, ma'am, we want to find out what is the status. All of the residents are ready. Some of them have died sad deaths, wondering what has taken place with the destruction of one of the most dynamic projects in Barbados that pulled in thousands of locals and tourists during the month of June for more than 10 years. And then it suddenly stopped in the other administration, and I really am very disappointed that it has destroyed the interests, the volunteerism, the exposure of skills and talents and so, not only in Allenview, but in the general environs of the parish, and it was extended to the rest of Barbados. The heritage site, the heritage location there at Sturgis would have been the overall persons who planned that project, and there were brochures, there were journals and different community notes and so, that people still have them, especially when it highlighted residents who were outstanding, that were the role models, and more who were there that will be role models for our children and others in the community. I want to know what's happening because it has taken away an integral part of our hearts in the parish and the rest of Barbados, and I believe it should be reinstituted because the spirit of volunteerism was one of the most dynamic things that ever happened in the parish, and I believe across the rest of Barbados. And the third one, ma'am, is to do with, okay, I've got others for the next system. Okay, I'll leave it there then, ma'am, and just pray that we will be able to get that response as to what funding and what plans there are in the Ministry of Tourism, because when you look at the places of interest in the parish and the linkages that the locals and the visitors were able to work towards, the Mount Hillaby, the Flower Forest, Welsh Mahal Gully, the zip line, and indeed the Harrison's Cave, among others, I believe it is a critical part of what we do that will help to uplift whatever the Ministry of Tourism and the other agencies are doing to offer a better product to the visitors and the locals among us. Thank you, ma'am.
I thank the honourable member, ma'am, for her question and her observations. I've asked the chairman, the CEO of the Caves of Barbados to come and join me at the table, and I will give her the microphone shortly. But let me just say to the honourable member that I recognize and appreciate her passion. The honourable member will recall I invited her to my ministry a couple months ago with a view to discussing some of these matters because they are also near and dear to my heart because part of my constituency encompasses the parish of St. Thomas as well. I feel, ma'am, that the reality is that, let's start first of all with the cave itself. The cave is a major, in fact, not major, the cave is the preeminent tourism attraction in Barbados. It is a major cultural asset. It is a major heritage asset. It's in every way every sense of the word, ma'am, it is a national treasure. It is for land-based and cruise-based tourism, the first and foremost experience that people wish to have. Now, when we met, the honourable member and I, and indeed when I have met with the board of the cave, I have made it abundantly clear that there is, in my view, a need to deepen the level and the extent of participation of the neighbouring communities with the cave experience. And as the honourable member quite rightly pointed out, there are a number of neighbouring attractions, Welsh Mahal, etc., where we can create new combinations of experience so that you can have your hiking. They tire of hearing me talking about the lunchtime experience, so that you don't rush back to a cruise ship, for example, but you spend some time learning how to roast a breadfruit, and you learn how to make some mobby, and all that is part of the rural experience in Barbados. And there's no good reason why that cannot be done, and the neighboring communities incorporated. Specifically with respect to the kiosk, I would invite Ms. Franklin, who is seated to my right, to speak to that matter.
Good afternoon, Chair. Andrew Franklin, CEO of Harrison's Cave. With respect to the community tourism involvement and the issue of the kiosks along the Allen View area, it is something that is we are actively pursuing. I believe from the original project, Madam Minister, there's probably only one remainder, which is Celestine's, which she is quite successful, and we work very closely with her. But we need to use that example to try to recreate the interest within the community, to have other entrepreneurs come on board with us, to get them involved with the area and the development of more community tourism. So that is something that we've been mandated to do, and something that we are looking at in the coming year in terms of reigniting our community involvement with the Allen View Welshman Hall area, ma'am. As it relates to and I believe you referred to the Heart of Barbados program, which existed around 2007, 2008, back in that time, where we work closely with a number of attractions in the area, the Welshman Hall, Gully, Flower Forest, etc. And last year, we started a pilot to reignite that interest, working with 2 of those, and this year the intention is to expand that to incorporate more of the attractions within the area. As you said, there are a number of beautiful natural attractions that we will work with going forward, so we are in dialogue with a number of them to reignite the concept of Heart of Barbados, even if not called that, to reignite that concept going forward in the new financial year. As well as in terms of the wider community involvement, yes, under the head of health and wellness, we see Harrison's Cave fitting into that, targeting that niche as it relates to tourism, and using the areas around us, developing hiking trails from Jack in the Box Gully coming into Harrison's Cave. And only last week, we had some of our guides start to explore the route, and that would involve incorporation of an authentic dining experience at the end of the hike with, yes, the roasted breadfruit, etc. So all of this is work that we have started to pursue for 2019, well, in view of the 2019-20 financial year, but we're starting right now.
Thank you. Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to place on record for the benefit of the Chamber, given that there was a seemingly conflation of numbers before, that the professional fees certainly associated with the Ministry of Finance, that for the record of the House, that normally when one does a debt restructuring, the fees associated with such are in the region of 75 to 85% basis points with respect to fees associated with the settlement of that. And immediately upon coming to office, the Cabinet gave me the undertaking to be able to negotiate the fees on behalf of the government. We were able to successfully renegotiate the fees to 0.45% of the success. But I think it's important for the benefit of the House and certainly for the public to understand that Greece would have paid US $30 million for their debt restructuring. Puerto Rico would have paid $225 million US as part of their settlement with respect to the debt restructuring. And so therefore the fees that referred to previously in this session, they just want for the clarity of this chamber to understand that the government of Barbados, certainly in the next financial year, will be to the tune of saving almost $1 billion in both interest and amortization, and that will be the case in 2019, 2020, in 2021, 2022, 2022 and in 2022-2023. And so for the next 3 fiscal years, Madam Chair, the fees that are associated that was being referenced in the earlier part of this exercise relate to the settlement of the fees with respect to the debt advisors as well as the legal advisors in respect of this thing. And so I would want to just make it abundantly clear that in addition to that, our consultants are also renegotiating all of the egregious contracts that were agreed to under the previous administration at many of the state-owned enterprises, such that the monies that we are paying these individuals are worth the work that they're doing for the benefit of the taxpayers of this country. And I want to give this honorable House the undertaking that at the resumption from lunch, I shall lay the appropriate documentation in this chamber such that there shall be no question with respect to the matter of fees. But permit me to just ask the Honourable Minister a question. Since we are talking about professional fees, what has been his experience and understanding with respect to the amount of contracts that might have been undertaken under his ministry by the previous administration, and whether or not he is seeing any benefit with respect to any of those contracts for professional services?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I think I appreciate the clarification, and I hope the Leader of the Opposition appreciates it as well.
Thank you, ma'am. With your leave, and I am happy about the Honourable Member's eagerness to give us some clarification on the matter.
Asked the question, ma'am.
He asked a question?
Yeah, he asked the question. Why is the Honourable Leader of the Opposition responding on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism?
I thought I was recognized by the chair.
Question was asked, ma'am. I was about to answer the question.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East, could you repeat the question, please? East Central, sorry.
Yeah. I was asking the Honourable Minister to give his view in terms of, since we are talking about professional services, that based on the contracts of engagement under his ministry, under the previous administration, whether or not he is seeing any credible benefit to the taxpayers of this country as it relates to the engagement of consultants in his ministry.
Go ahead, Honourable Member.
Ma'am, I must tell you that with respect to the contracts that I have come across in my ministry, I cannot say that there have been any benefit. In fact, quite frankly, ma'am, they have had a horrendous consequence on the state of affairs financially, and would obviously have to have been among those that had to be negotiated or certainly brought back to the representatives of those contracts brought back to the table so that they could make financial sense. For example, ma'am, at the Bridgetown Port, there would have been 2 contracts, each of which would have been in excess of $200 million for the building of essentially one facility for cruise piers. There's no way on heaven or earth that the government and people of Barbados could realistically afford that type of luxury. And the conflicting nature of the 2 contracts from 2 different proponents placed government in a situation where it would have had legal liabilities to defend to the tune, in either which way you look at it, of at least $200 million or more. And so, ma'am, I understand the thrust of the question made by the Minister for Finance. It is deeply unfortunate, I suspect, that we have had to come to this point. I could point to you, ma'am, I could point the House, ma'am, to circumstances where contracts did not yet materialize, for example, at Needham's Point, but where if the normal course of things had come to an end, on the basis of all the information that is readily available and the direction that discussions were going in, again, there would have been no useful end to the people of Barbados. The Hilton would have ended up being sold for virtually spit. And of course, sale of the Hilton is no longer on the cards. So that these are things, ma'am, which ought not to have happened, and they happened, may I say, with substantial professional consultants be on board in the last administration and being paid for their services. So that I think that one has to draw a distinction between that which transpires now, when there's clearly value for money. You cannot have a debt restructuring like White Oak, ma'am. The consultants there would have supervised and assisted us in taking $1.8 billion off of the books by way of a debt restructuring. Last time I was in this place at an estimates, ma'am, that was what if you looked at the column for debentures and so on, you would have seen that kind of money. Now you see zero. That is the kind of assistance that the government and people of Barbados have benefited from, in my judgment.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
I'll use, thank you, ma'am, the word of the Honorable Member for St. James Central, unfortunate. It is unfortunate that in this particular debate, the government would have to resort to defending its position by making reference to the misdeeds, alleged misdeeds of the last administration. I appreciate the eagerness of the Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central in attempting to help the Honorable Minister and his team to respond to the questions I posed earlier. But I am still left in the dark, ma'am, because we had a generalized statement with respect to consultancy professional services fees. If we want to give clarity to the situation in this Honorable House, I would believe that we could have information that would tell us in quite clear terms what White Oak's advisory group is being paid. What exactly are they? What is the sum? What is the quantum? We have situations where there are senior advisors to the government who, since we want to make reference to what happened on the last administration, misled this country and that then government with respect to investments at the Paradise Project, Four Seasons Project.
Honorable Member, while it's not Head 27, unfortunately the member for Christchurch East Central opened it.
Thank you.
So I really do not have justification for shutting down the Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So if we're going to get that diligent about giving clarity to the situation, tell us how much White Oaks, that question's been asked here several times, is being paid. And tell us how much a senior consultant who now advises this administration, after having ill-advised the last administration with reference to the Four Seasons Project, $60 million in national insurance money, monies belonging to the people of Barbados, a guarantee of $120 million of a loan out of a Trinidadian bank. If you want to give clarity, give us specifics. If you want to give clarity, give us specifics. That's what I'm asking. Don't give us generalized statements.
Interesting, though. I believe the Honorable Member of Opposition is asking for clarity.
I don't know if I can assist, ma'am, because I didn't hear a question. But if he's asking for clarity, I certainly can't help on the clarity point, ma'am, because I do not know who this consultant is that allegedly misled the government. I can't help you with that, ma'am, and the Honourable Member has not stated anything other than to lead by way of innuendo and what might properly be called nastiness if we were not in this House.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member for St. Joseph. Please do.
While we notice the intervention of the Leader of the Opposition and the nature of committees, and I can say that having had the experience of having both chaired and sat on committees, there's a fair amount of informality and free-for-all. But if the Leader of the Opposition, member for St. Michael West, wants to pose that question, when the head comes around, under which it properly stands, then he is certainly able to interrogate the Ministry of Finance when that opportunity arises. But we are still discussing the head of tourism, and I would urge that we bring the exercise back to where its focus properly lies.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Good afternoon. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And seeing that we are actually going back to tourism, and my question is specifically related to issues in tourism. The minister alluded, and I think the leader of the opposition highlighted, the extent to which we are seeing increased tourists, but not seeing the increased spend associated with those numbers. And in that vein, I am wondering what we are doing, or what the Ministry of Tourism